Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tracy, for organizing this great event, and thank you, everyone, for being here. I am Doriane Intungane, and I will be talking about inclusive leadership based on our ongoing project that I've been working on with my colleagues, Dr. Long, Dr. Gattelli, and Dr. Dongel. And we have been looking at the challenges in terms of employment that racialized Edmontonians face when they're trying to get into the labor market. So this project is in partnership with the City of Edmonton, community social workers. So our main objective is to understand and the type of challenges, the existence of inclusive working environment that exists here in Edmonton. And then by looking at the barriers that employed or those who are looking for employment face here in Edmonton. So we started collecting data in 2020, so it went on for 3 years. So that was a very particular time. So when we were planning that, we didn't know what was going to happen. But then it ended up being a great time because we finally got to understand the challenges in normal times and then also challenges in times of crisis for both racialized people and also visible minorities in general. Here, as we get to know the barriers that racialized or visible minorities face when they're searching for employment, we also talk to service providers, employment agencies, to understand if they have different strategies or programs that are tailored to the needs of racialized people or those in need, who have special needs. After that, we talk to community leaders and stakeholders and the City of Edmonton, put them together to actually show them the challenges that people face when they're trying to enter the labor market, and try to find solutions, put together different strategies, focusing on the need of diversity, fairness, and the sense of belongingness. So I will give first the summary of our main results. So we know that newcomers, immigrants in general, they face a lot of challenges when they are trying to enter the labor market. But then we also, as we will see as we go on, we see that the darker you are, the harder it's going to be. So there is a lot of disconnection between the workplace policies and practices and experiences of everyone, every newcomers and immigrant, but particularly Black workers. Now, when we look at the intersectionalities that exist, being a woman becomes also another issue. So there is this intersectionality of gender and race, and being religion also plays a very important role, as we will see. There is a lot of resistance of people, of Muslim people, having an accent or being a French speaker when you are also a racialized person is going to be also a challenge for you to even pass the job interviews. So just in general, the barriers that people face is they are sometimes unable to pass job interviews. And we will see that this is a combination of different things, maybe the lack of preparedness to job interviews or the knowledge of the Canadian workplace, but also there is part of it that comes from discrimination. We also heard from participants in our research that most of the time they are also being passed up for promotion. And there is also issues where people feel like they've been hired, but they are being hired to fill a quota, not being understood, not being considered. So the lack of belongingness in the workplace, basically. And so community leaders talked about the need of revision of policies and practices, but also, as we were showing them, the reality that immigrants and women face in the workplace, they really emphasize the issue of biasness in the hiring process and the lack of transparency in terms of hiring, but also firing people. So there are so many cases of unexplained layoffs that happened, particularly during COVID as well. So why do we need, how to think about inclusive leadership? So there's a large literature looking at how to define inclusive leadership, inclusive workplace, but most of those definitions, they kind of end up saying the same thing. Inclusive leadership focus on accommodating employees' need, appreciating their contribution, making sure that they feel like they belong in the workplace, and also inclusive leadership ensures justice, equity, and also provide a sense of responsibility to everyone by sharing decision-making opportunities. So overall, an inclusive leadership will create a valuable working environment for everyone by focusing on diversity, fairness, and belongingness. And why we need that: when people or workers feel like they're included, they are more productive, they are more efficient, they are more engaged in everything that they do, and they work at a full potential level. So that creates a great sense of collaboration among workers, and they are able to actually respond to challenges positively. So this is a plus for organization and businesses. So that increase outcomes of organization and institutions in general. And this is an issue in Edmonton, considering that 1 in 4 Edmontonians is an immigrant. The cultural diversity of newcomers is growing here in Edmonton, and the percentage of visible minorities percentage increased by 10% in the last 5 years, and will also continue to increase in the future. But then when you go back in the data again, you see that among racialized Edmontonian, Black Edmontonians, they are the third largest racialized population in Edmonton, but they also face a highest unemployment rate. So that's a problem, and those are people who are willing to work, participate in the production process, and increase outcome and GDP, but also pay taxes. So it's a win-win situation here. So in our research here, we have, I'm going to talk about the methodology here. So we first talked to settlement and service providers, employment programs coordinators, as well as research and training centers operating here in Edmonton, just to have an idea of what has been done to support this group of Edmontonians. But we also talked to focus group. We also organized focus group discussions with racialized people. Some groups were a mix of men and women, and we had 2 focus group sessions with only women. And they talked about their challenges and how they try to overcome all those challenges. And then we had an online survey with Edmontonians and Albertans in general, where they had an opportunity to share their employment experiences. We had more than 400 participants here. And then we present all these data, all these experiences to the city of Edmonton and community stakeholders to try to find solution to the issue. So I will briefly talk about each category here based on the time here. So for the discussion with and interviews with employment service providers, when we talked about fairness, belongingness, and diversity. So all the respondents to our research and all the employment service providers, they recognize the challenges that Edmontonian newcomers and immigrants face when they're searching for employment. However, only half of them recognize that visible minorities, job seekers, face particular discrimination in the hiring process, and they tend also to be underemployed. And the main reason this is the case is because some of these providers don't keep record of people's racial profile, or they don't have service tailored to the needs of this specific type of client. So they don't know, they would not necessarily have a data to prove that racialized or visible minorities face more discrimination. And then here I have a few examples of statements that they shared with us. And these results are very similar to what we see also in the literature. Racialized newcomers experience a lot of exclusion when they're entering the job market. They face a lot of stereotypes based on language and skills and their credentials as well. And when it comes to the sense of belongingness and fairness, the most common barriers faced by racialized newcomers in the workplace is related to racism and microaggression. So as I said, the darker you are, the more discrimination you're going to face. There is a lot of stereotype of against Black African descent newcomers based on their skills, based on their credentials and knowledge. And we also heard that there was also another different opinion coming from our discussion with service providers. They said that in some situations, discrimination does not necessarily come from mainstream Canadians. It comes from most established immigrants as well. So here this can be explained by maybe the lack of opportunities. If they know that maybe in terms of promotion, there's going to be only one woman who will get the promotion, and everybody is fighting for the same position. So that instead of creating a sense of collaboration, is going to create more of a fight among people who are working and want to have that position. So that becomes then an issue. So for the service providers, in general, the issues that they face is the lack of information regarding the states and services that are in need for the newcomers, for women or people who face more discrimination. And there is a normalization of whiteness in the Canadian workplace. So basically the hiring teams, most of the time, they are not as diverse, even if they are looking for diverse people, so they tend to hire people who will look like them. It's much more, becomes much more easier. So the challenges are related mainly to racism, microaggression, and colorism in the workplace. Now, when we talk about particular issues that women face, and these are results we get from focus group discussions here. Now we're going to, the responses that we got can be divided in three different categories. Problem related to race and gender, problem related to race and religion, and race and language. So women face more challenges when they have children. There is childcare and motherhood issues. That's an issue in normal times, but it also got worse with during COVID. So as most women, because they don't have a lot of opportunities, sometimes they have to take jobs that have very different schedules than compared to the schedules of their childcare facilities. So it becomes an issue, particularly if they don't have a big group of networks or friends who can help them to take care of their kids. And they also talked about the stress that they face, not only at work, but also their kids, where teachers tend to pay extra attention to the Black children because of the type of stereotype that some parents tend to hurt their kids in how they raise them. So that becomes then also a stressful critical issue for most mothers. And when it comes to religion, Muslim women face way more discrimination and issues. We were told by Muslim women that in some situations they even face attacks in public transit when they're going to work, particularly during that time of COVID. So it's easy to identify them because they wear a hijab. So when they're walking, someone was saying, when I'm walking, I usually get water thrown at me. So when they go for job interviews as well, they don't get this opportunity because sometimes they thought because of the obligatory prayers that they need. So that for some hiring team, they see that as they are wasting time. They are not productive because of that. This is also something that employment service providers told us, particularly after COVID, when there was a need of workers. They had a lot of people coming to them asking, wanting to hire more people, willing to hire racialized people, but they mentioned, we don't want people who pray. So that becomes an issue. So the exclusion based on race and gender and religion here is known as a masculine penalty in the Canadian labor market. So there's a lot of research as well in that area. Language. Most women talked about not being able to pass the interview stage, and they are told that they have a huge, really thick accent that people will not be able to understand. Most of those women, they're francophone, French-speaking. They come from African French-speaking countries, and those issues of not having a huge thick accent, French accent, is not a problem for European speaking French. So that basically show that in some situations this is just pure discrimination. Now, what I want to talk is also what other participants in our discussions, in our focus group discussion said, mainly men. They were telling us that during meetings, how they feel like they were hired just because to fill a quota. During meetings, they are not heard. They feel like they are not heard. When I'm talking, my supervisor keeps working. The degrees are not recognized, particularly coming from African countries. And the way women and men deal with that issue, it's a little bit different. Women tend to try to avoid the situation. They may go back to school, get a higher degree, go back for a master's degree maybe, thinking that it's gonna get better. They try to find another job, even if it's a part-time or it's paying less, just to avoid this type of a workplace where there is no enough inclusion. However, men are different in the sense that they face the challenge and they ask for explanation. Here, the man who said, the supervisor keeps working whenever I'm talking to him. At some point, he just stopped the supervisor and asked, why whenever I'm talking to you, you keep working? Is there any issue? Is there something that I'm doing that is not correct? And the supervisor just apologized, and from that time, everything continued to be well, and the person was going to continue to be considered. We had another man who was who was asked by the manager to train a new person who is going to be a supervisor, their supervisor. That happened one time, and the second time, and the person went back to the manager and said, you are asking me to train someone who's going to be my supervisor. That means I have the skills and the knowledge to be actually the supervisor. Have you ever thought about making me a supervisor? And the manager admitted that they've never thought about that. And from that time, the man became a supervisor. So that's a difference between men and women, which explain a little bit that sometimes women need more mentorship, more guidance to be able to face these situations here. Okay. So for the online survey, now I said we talked to more than just Edmontonians, people from Calgary, from other cities. Some of them are racialized, some of them are not racialized. We had a good mix of men and women and other gender identities participating in our discussion. And then in terms of age, they are both mainly between 20 and 59, mainly employed, and we had various educational background, but most of them had at least a bachelor degree or secondary education. So again, people tend to talk about the same thing, that they face, the type of discrimination that they face. But we also ask in their specific workplace, do you see that there is diversity in terms of the managerial team or just your colleagues? They all recognize that there is not enough diversity. Mainly among the managerial team, there is less gender diversity, and then around 10% of people will be say that they've had in their workplace a woman who is a supervisor or a manager. Everybody else said that they have not get to see a woman being a boss or a supervisor. And most of the issues of people who face discrimination are related to race and gender, religion, sexual orientation, but also political beliefs. So now in this online survey, we had more questions related to policies and practices to promote DEI. 33% of respondents reported that their companies offer training on anti-racism and DEI. Some of them were not sure if their workplace have such activities or policies. And there are other people who said that they know that there is no any policy or procedure about DEI. And the other thing that we saw is the size of the organization matters in terms of their capacity to support DEI initiatives. The bigger the organization, the more trainings or policies you will see in the organization. So most respondents from fewer than 50 employees stated that their organization does not have necessary policies or training that exist. For organizations with more than 200 employees, there are 11 times more likely than firms that with fewer than 50 employees to be appropriately diverse, but also to have some sort of training and policies in place. So it says something about the establishment of the organization. Well-established organizations will be able to have a transparent hiring process, whereas a smaller organization, maybe they hire through networking, and then they don't have necessary policies or a clear process of hiring people. So now we presented this result to the leaders in the city, and the main objective basically was just to share our project findings, and then hear some recommendation on what we can do in the future. So we organized 3 workshop sessions this summer. So these are one of our workshops. So as we presented them, the issues they wrote down what they think should be the great practice based on their experiences and based on their institutions as well. So here, first we identify why we think this is an issue, and the main issue is the decision-making process. Who is part of the hiring team? There is a lot of biasness in the hiring process. Hiring managers or hiring teams are not well diverse, or they are also not trained. And the policies that have been implemented in the institution are not transparent enough, are not clear enough for the hiring managers. So that becomes a problem. So it's related to the lack of transparency. The workplace structure, there is no evaluation, no monitoring, and some of the policies or practices are not necessarily human-driven initiative. We are counting the numbers of people who are there, not necessarily understanding the stories, their needs. How do we help them to be more productive? So I said that even some of the interviews, the questions that they may ask, they may be questions that are going to discriminate some people. Okay, so no information sharing, no communication skills in some situation. We had in our focus group discussion a group of young men who were saying that in their workplace at some point they were laid off with no necessary an explanation. And when they asked, it was mainly racialized people. Why are we being laid off? We just don't like the way you work. That was an explanation given. So no information sharing. Instead of probably putting together some sort of training, give a warning and explain why this is an issue, how to improve, nothing was done. So now I want to talk about the existing strategies and the recommended strategies and programs. So what employment service providers, they talked about what they do most of the time when they face issues related to discrimination, when an organization comes and say, we don't want people who pray, how do you deal with that situation? They usually say, like, we have an open conversation, basically, with the employers. Sometimes that's good enough to explain, like, this is one explanation that organizations and businesses will give is say, we don't want to hire people who don't necessarily look like our customers. We want to serve our customers. And one thing that employment service providers can show is the future where we are going with the newcomers, with the people who are going to be the future Edmontonians. There are going to be more mix and people, so it's good to also train and have workers who will help the new customers that you will have in the future. There are also educational programs providing anti-racism training, supporting also women. Then these trainings will be tailored to the needs of a specific company. This was mainly in demand after the Black Lives Matter movement. Some institutions realized that we are not doing enough and asked for some support from research and training centers operating here in Edmonton. Sharing information with racialized immigrants, letting them know about the Canadian workplace culture, organizing network events, mentoring programs, and also helping them to improve their language, their English. So these are great programs that exist, but one of the issues that employment service providers said is that such programs and initiatives, although they are really nice, most of the time they don't get enough funding for that. Maybe they can be found for 12 months. That would not be enough to actually see a positive impact in the labor market. So they need more funding, need more support in that sense. And then in terms of the recommended strategies, policies should be clear, should look at the structure of the workplace. There has to be enforcement of the practices, and the management team also need to be trained. The hiring processes need to be reviewed in some situations, and also have some sort of accountability. It's not just to have the quotas of diverse workers, but also understand how are you helping them to work at their potential level. Credentials not being transferable, that was an issue, and one of the suggestions given by leaders was, how would we give an opportunity to demonstrate skills to people, and then also give them some training when they need that. So that can help to fill some gaps in here. Training is important for all employees, not only the newcomers and the new employees, but also the existing one. But because even in the online survey, we saw that non-racialized people or workers tend to feel like they are being excluded, but then it's probably the lack of training and lack of information. They don't understand necessarily that this brings a complementarity of workers, whether diversity in terms of gender or in terms of race. So everyone needs a little bit of training. And making people feel welcome as well. That's another thing. So one of the leaders was explaining that at some point he was giving a tour to new employees, and then the employee asked where is the prayer room. They couldn't find anything to show them on the first floor, the second floor. They found a tiny small room on the fifth floor, and this leader was saying, this already showed that I was not welcoming the new worker in that environment. They would never feel welcome in that situation. Mentorship is very important, encouraging people to apply for new opportunities, particularly women. Women, even if they have skills, sometimes they don't even apply for the next job internally, even internally, where everybody knows them. They need some sort of support as well. Awareness campaigns. Black Lives Matter movement raised awareness. It did most of the training that the Research and Training Center gave after the Black Lives Matter movement was based on that. People now understood that we need to do more. There are people who are not getting jobs, but they have the skills and the knowledge that they can share with us. Monitoring and evaluation of policies. Put together measurable impact that you need to see in your institution, and make sure that you follow that and the policies as well. So this is basically the summary of our work here. In general, racialized newcomers, immigrants experience a lot of challenges when they are integrating the labor market. Women and men face different challenges and also solve the issues a little bit differently. There is the perspective around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a little bit diverse as well. We saw that with the online survey as well. And those the discussion around policies is unclear. The policies are not really clear. They are well written, but most institutions, they don't know how to implement that. How do we go from just the written policy to put that in place? And what will be the main outcome that we want to see when we include women, when we include racialized people? So the main recommendation is around training the hiring teams, job seekers, current employees as well. And then also there is a need of more social integration programs for Canadians, well-founded type of programs. So this is our team, Dr. Long, myself, Dr. Gatedi, and Dr. Donga. Thank you very much. I don't know if we continue with the Q&A now or the discussion.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
All right, and of course, if you have questions, please go at the center aisle. I'll be happy to give you the microphone. Any questions from this side? I think, all right. There you go. We have one question here.
Thank you for the eye-opening study. That was absolutely fantastic. And
Thank you.
so much great data there. And I appreciated just how vulnerable and honest the participants were as they were talking about their experiences. We need more of that. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm curious about the example around men and women, around men and women and the opportunity to talk about with their supervisors, for example, an issue that is of concern. The talking and walking is the one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
There is some literature out there to say that if women were to do the exact same approach, it would be seen as aggressive. I'm curious about your perspective around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think it's still important to actually have. That's why we need a training. Everybody needs to be trained. When a woman approaches you to talk about an issue or to talk about how they feel they are not being treated correctly, the supervisor, the manager should be considering them as well as the same way they would consider a man. So the training should come on both sides as well, raising awareness on both sides. Mm-hmm.
Just one additional question. So you talked a little bit about the fact that there's a lack of leadership and women leaders, and I completely agree. And specifically here in Edmonton, I think there's lots of incredible people who should be leaders. I think a lot of them are in this room, and yet we're facing barriers. I have been a leader in a number of organizations, and one thing that I don't think is talked enough about, and I'm curious about your research here, is discrimination that people in leadership face. It's actually quite difficult, especially if you're at the vice president-ish level. You have discrimination coming from board and CEO top down, and you also potentially have discrimination that's not talked about because it can be embarrassing for a lot of leaders from the bottom up. People who don't necessarily believe in you, think you shouldn't be there, think you're too short, too blah, 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 whatever. So curious about your perspective on that. And what your research has shown so far, or if there's any research out there.
Yeah, so I will just probably think out loud here with that as I answer the question. There is a need of, when we talk about policies and practices, the support system need to exist, to be created somehow to support women as also in leadership position. Yeah, it happens to all of us, it happened to me as well. You are challenged by even people who are under you, may think you're not supposed to be there probably as a woman, or they may not ask you questions that are not appropriate, that they will not ask a man, for example. So that happens a lot. And I think will come from these campaigns of awareness. I think they will play a big role, and they can be structured based on the needs or the specific structure of the institution. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the question. Another question from here.
Hi, my name is Arma. So you mentioned in your presentation that for some women that experience workplace discrimination, there's that tendency to step back and maybe go for positions that are part-time or less paying. And I was wondering what support you think companies could offer women that may have experienced previous workplace trauma, but they're trying to rebuild in their new role or maybe hesitant.
I think those will be one of the rules of the social integration programs that they suggested here. Having a place where women can go actually also present their issues to other women or other leaders, the allies who are there to support them, and actually help them to say, okay, this is an issue in this sense, how about we approach it this way? They tend to solve their problems by themselves a lot. And most of the time when you are dealing with such an issue, you will avoid. More likely that's one thing that will come first. Yeah. I think, yeah, creating more networking events, social integration programs, specific to the needs for women will be very important.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you think that it's more like other programs and safe spaces versus like employers that have that responsibility, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
So like instead of like employers kind of creating that, it's more so finding that somewhere else, like outside of the workspace.
It will be a combination of both. So that when I'm talking about allies, maybe also the employers will be part of it, and to understand that women are facing more issues. Actually, I've talked to some leaders, male leaders, and they sometimes don't understand that women are facing those issues. They think it's not a problem. But this is what we have been doing. Maybe we have our meetings in a bar all the time, and that's something that we have been doing. Like, you're gonna join us, right? It's not an issue on understanding. I have kids, maybe I have other responsibilities after work. How about we do that during during lunchtime or during work time, things like that. So I think also raising awareness among employers is also important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one more thing that I would say, as we were working on this research, we realized that we probably need to go much more deeper. And then our next step will be probably do another research that looks at women specifically, okay, and then identify what type of policies and programs that are specific to the need of women, to support women to go to the next level. Yeah.
All right, and in addition, before we go to our next question, that's the reason why you should join Grow Women Leaders, because to all of those questions, we actually have a program for that. All right, so let's go to the next question.
Hi, my name is Danielle. My question is, what advice do you have for a job seeker or a candidate that is looking to access if a company is truly inclusive, and what advice do you have for that for someone like me? Yeah, especially like someone that is, a racialized individual.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question, and it's a little bit tricky. So it's hard to see until you actually are working there. But one of the things that some institutions have been doing when they are advertising their jobs, in the job description, they also mention that they are open to hire women. This is a diverse place, so they actually know that now people are looking at that. So look at values like that for an institution, and then work from there. Unfortunately, as we saw in the data that we collected, sometimes for now, most of the institutions, they are focusing on the quotas, the diversity part, and they have not been able to, most of them, they have not been able to create safe or encouraging environment for everyone. So it's probably the next step, but the more people, more women work in that place, they will be able to raise their voice and raise their concerns. And that's when we go from one step to another.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions? Any follow-up? Okay.
Hi there, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, I was looking at, when you see, I think Indeed, and then when you look at applying for jobs, and they'll have kind of a disclaimer saying that we are an inclusive,
Institution, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm just wondering about when you do go to the interview, is it worthwhile saying, well, I saw the disclaimer, and, when they ask you why you applied, is it worth bringing that up? Maybe not the first thing, but maybe that's part of the discussion of when you're getting hired, and maybe that notes that it's important to me to work for a person like that as well.
Yeah, that's a very good way to approach that. Yeah. Talking about what you saw, or maybe go to their website and then see the managerial team. Is it well diverse? And if this is what you see and that's what you like, you can actually say that this is a great practices. I see that you're practicing inclusion, in your workplace, that's something that is important to me. So that's a great point. Yeah, definitely.
All right, and the last question. Okay, we have here our last one question.
I'm lucky. Okay, my name is Olga, and my question is, we know that there's issues, and you demonstrated it with your research as well, amongst Black and Ontarians, or Black in general here in Canada. The question I have is, when we look at the issue at the systemic level, because we know even within the government, there is a lawsuit at this time from Black Canadian here now. So the question I have is, have you or some institution like, Q1 or university, I haven't seen any research in terms of the employer, because it's at the systemic level, the practices and the policies. And so I wonder if there is some work to be done at the employer level in different, I don't know, because here in Canada it's mostly, how do I say, très régionalisé in French. So basically, there is a lawyer that you have to go through a PIGA, the lawyer association. So because even the immigration law now saying, well, before coming to Canada, you need to do your, degree, do the assessment and everything. So I wonder if in your institution would be great to have, some kind of a research and data. Where is the problem? Where it lies?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have to say, when we started to look at doing this research, we didn't find a lot of research done in Edmonton to looking at the employment challenges of visible minorities, Black women. There's not a lot of done, so there's still a lot of work to be done to actually identify the issue. I don't have a specific answer to that question. This is something that maybe it's another research that needs to be done, actually. And I understand it depends on the sector, the type of discrimination that you face as a woman in an engineering program is going to be different from the type of discrimination that you face as an economist or as a lawyer. Yeah, that's another area of research that needs to be explored. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to ask a question in regard to also make a comment to what Olga was saying. If you already know, what we do at Program Leaders is focus mainly on helping women, especially immigrants and BIPOC, get hired and advance their career, most especially when they are skilled, internationally educated. Because I know firsthand, because I'm a minority woman, that there was a need to support these women that was just not really out there. When we started this, whenever we started doing it about 8 years ago, everybody really liked it, because even the employers knew that what we were doing, there was a big gap that we were feeling. So just to go back to what Olga is saying right now, all this while, what we saw out there was mostly a program for candidates. Training, go back to school, additional degree, is that what you want? Go back to school. Until we started wanting to bridge that gap to say, we're looking for representation. And most importantly, my passion is that I have 2 daughters that are equally very smart, ambitious, and they want better things in life. And they were not just seeing representation out there, especially in different industries, right? And I was also starting to see, as an immigrant too, that we were just looking at industries that was already like There were so many opportunities in another industry, which Canada has, but nobody was going to that industry. Rather, there was a focus in the service industry. So how do we start getting those women into industries that was paying more, but no woman was there? That is where we began what we're doing. We learned that we haven't finalized yet. Those employers that was telling us that we're doing good things, now that we're saying we can help work with them, nobody wants to take the offer of getting skilled women. As I said, this is just kind of what we're thinking, that we seriously have to look at how do we get employer to get started, because it's really, this issue is bigger than we think. And we've seen firsthand how skilled women are suffering, with mental health. This is directly correlated with mental health, and it's increasing by day. We've seen women come to grow space, so educated, so skilled, crying. And everything that you talked about, Doctor, is definitely what we're experiencing. So just asking, there is not enough research for employers, that's for sure. And secondly, my father or my grandfather always say, there is no time, it's an African adage, that you play a drum that people will not come and dance. It will always attract people to dance. What does that mean? I actually feel that when a position is open, any woman, immigrants especially, they would do anything, any training to get in that position. But still, usually it's not enough for most employer. So now my question now goes into, what can we start doing to let employers know that there are organizations like Grow Women Leaders that are actually wanting to bridge this bridge? What can we do to get this word out other than what we're doing right now? So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So one way I can actually answer that question is how diversity is seen in some institutions. It's not seen as when you bring people from different background, bring up together men and women. It's not seen as something that is helping the organization grow or increase outcome. So that's something that maybe we now need to focus more and say, if you have men and women working together, their productivity is going to increase. They are going to be more efficient. Maybe a woman with young kids will not be available during that time, and then she will be able to work maybe evening or morning, etc., and then complement with someone else who is working different hours, for example. I see that, for example, in the academic world when we are looking at hours. I'm teaching morning, I'm teaching afternoon. One is because I'm picking up my kids afternoon, so I need to teach in the morning. Another person is going to be available in the afternoon because in the morning they have to bring their kids somewhere else. So because of that, actually, it ends up being great, and everybody is able to work their different times and different schedules in different capacities, and then help to increase the production and increase the ability to solve all the issues that exist in an institution. So yeah, I think most organizations don't see diversity as something that is going to be to have a positive impact on their outcome. I think that's something now we need to focus on more. Yeah, explaining that when you hire more women and men at the same time, they will work together, they will increase production together.
All right, I think that's it for today. Any additional? Okay, I think that's it for the session. Do you want to say thank you and goodbye?
Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank you so much, Dr. Doriane, for such a powerful start of the day. Your insights remind us what inclusive leadership